Hello everyone, welcome to Michigan Man MTG, and we're back with the top 10 rares for standard from Lorwyn Eclipsed. So let's dive into my list. So coming in at number 10, I've got Ashleen Rekindled for 1 and a red mana. You get a creature that's an elemental sorcerer and is a 1/3, and whenever this creature enters or transforms into Ashleen Rekindled, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card, which we know is a valued ability right now in Standard. And then at the beginning of your first main phase, you may pay a blue mana. If you do, transform Ashleen, and when you do, you get Ashleen Rimbound, Elemental Wizard, 1/3, and whenever this creature transforms into Ashleen Rimbound, and at the beginning of your first main phase, add 2 mana of any one color. Spend this mana only to cast spells with mana value 4 or greater. And at the beginning of your first main phase, you may pay a red mana. If you do, transform Ashleen. So I think this is a card, if we do have an elemental deck, this is going to be the key engine for it, because that ability to get mana to cast those spells that are 4 mana value or more will be critical. But because this doesn't require it to be for just creatures that are elementals, so Ashleen becomes a 2 mana dork for any 4 mana spell that we have in Standard, and I think that's going to be good enough to see play. We already have the Temur Battle Crier deck that's seen some play in Standard, and this is a card I think just kind of fits into that deck nicely. But we also have a number of decks that do play a lot of higher mana value cards, and because of that, I think Ashleen fits in there. Next, we've got Sig Wanderwine Wisdom for 1 and a blue mana. You get a legendary creature that's a Merfolk Wizard and is a 2/2. Sig can't be blocked, and whenever this creature enters or transforms into Sig Wanderwine Wisdom, target creature gains. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you get to draw a card until end of turn. So every time Sig attacks, in essence, you get to draw a card off of that because he can't be blocked, which I think is a really powerful ability in Standard right now. And then at the beginning of your first main phase, you may pay a white mana. If you do, transform Sig, and then when you do, you get Sig Wanderbrine Shield, legendary creature, Merfolk Rogue, and is a 2/2. Again, Sig cannot block, and whenever this creature transforms into Sig Wanderbrine Shield, target creature you control gains protection from each color until your next turn. At the beginning of your first main phase, again, you can pay blue mana and transform him back into Sig Wanderwine Wisdom. And I think the back half of this is valuable enough in combat at different points that you're going to want to do that, where you can give it protection from all the colors, and one of your creatures in essence can't be blocked. And because of that, I think this fits into a variety of blue-white decks that we're going to see in Standard. Next, we've got Reese the Evermore for 1 and a white mana. You elect your creature that's an elf warrior and is a 2/2 with flash. And whenever Reese enters the battlefield, another target creature you control gains persist until end of turn. And for 1 white mana, you can tap it and remove any number of counters from target creature you control, and you can activate only as a sorcery. So one of the things that we're going to see from this set is the Blight ability that is on a lot of cards. In Reese the Evermore is the card that solves that problem. So you pay 1 mana in white, and you can remove all the blight counters from a creature. And because of that, I think this is going to be a card that deck builders are going to look to solve that problem. And when you flash him in, you're probably going to get to save a creature under those circumstances as well. And I think because of that, Reese is going to be a very valuable card in Standard. Next, we've got Harmonized Crescendo for 4 and 2 blue mana. You get an instant with Convoke, and what that means is your creatures can help cast this spell. Each creature you tap while casting this spell pays for 1 mana or 1 mana of that creature's color. So if you tap blue creatures, it helps to play for the blue. Choose a creature type, draw a card for each permanent you control of that type. So currently in Standard, we have an Allies deck. We're probably going to see at least one tribal deck come out of Lorwyn Eclipsed. And in my looking at this card, this is a card that could, in theory, in the mid to late game, it could draw you 5-6 cards easily if you filled up your battlefield with creatures of the particular type that you're choosing. And because of that, I think reloading, in essence, in the mid game is an incredibly powerful ability. So I think this is going to be a card that tribal decks are going to try to use to restock their hands in the mid to late game. Next, we've got Formidable Speaker for 2 and a green mana. You get a 2/4 Elf Druid, and whenever this creature enters the battlefield, you may discard a card. If you do, search your library for a creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So this is a great way to go get whatever card you need at any point in time. And then for 1 mana, you can tap him and untap another target creature. And this is John Emmanuel Depraz, World Championship 29 card. And I think this is going to be a card that green decks are going to want to play because you can just go get whatever creature you need in that given set of circumstances just for casting him. So you probably cast this on turn 3. Hey, I don't have a Badger Mole Cub yet. I'm going to discard a card and I'm going to go get a Badger Mole Cub. I don't have my Roboride yet. I'm going to go discard a card. After casting this, I'm going to go get that. So because of that, I think this is going to be a card that is going to see a lot of standard play in our green decks. At number 5, I've got Dawnhand Dissident for a black mana. You get an Elf Warlock, that's a 1/2. You can tap it in Blight 1 to Surveil 1, or you can tap it in Blight 2, exile target card from a graveyard. And then during your turn, you may cast creature spells from among cards you own exiled with this creature by removing 3 counters from among creatures you control, in addition to paying their other costs. So this is one of the payoffs for Blight. So we got a lot of cards in Standard from the set that are going to come in blighted. So the mana cost is low, but we're going to have blight counters on them that reduce their power and toughness. Well, Dawnhand Dissident is a way of removing those counters. You blight something when you tap it, exile a creature from your graveyard, and then on the next turn, or even on that same turn, if it's a creature you're removing from your graveyard, then you can just go ahead and cast the card. And you can remove the 2 counters that you just put on a creature when you blighted it. So because of that, I think this is going to be a card that will see a lot of standard play over the next 3 years. Next, we've got Bree of Clan Stoutarm for 2, a red and a white mana. You get a legendary creature that's a giant warrior and is a 4/4. And for 1 and a white mana, you can tap her, and another target creature you control gains flying and lifelink until end of turn. And then on top of that, at the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card without paying its mana value if the spell's mana value is less than or equal to the amount of life you gained this turn. Otherwise, put it in your hand. So Bree is card draw / card play off the top of your deck. So you do this and you gain 4 or 5 life, and now pretty much any card that you get from your deck is going to be immediately just put right onto the battlefield. So I have a feeling this is going to be good in Commander, definitely, and I really think Boros decks are going to want this in Standard, because just about every card that you have in Standard right now that deck is playing is a card you could just play by gaining a couple life using her ability. Next, at number 3, I've got Kinsar Sentry for 1 and a white mana. You get a Kithkin Soldier, that's a 2/2 with first strike and lifelink, and I think this is a card that immediately fits into a deck with Bree. And whenever this creature attacks, you may put a creature card with mana value X or less from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking, where X is the number of attacking creatures you control. This is a bonkers ability. If you attack with 5 creatures, you can put a 5-drop into play. I have a feeling this is going to be a card that people are going to really start hating very quickly. Simply because you're going to be able to put a creature every single turn, basically, in combat onto the battlefield when you attack with this. And because the Sentry has first strike and it's not legendary, you could have multiple cards like this onto the battlefield. So I think this might actually go into a deck that's got the ability to actually draw a bunch of cards over the course of the game. So you have the ability to refill your hand regularly. And because of that, I really have a feeling that this soldier is going to be a very key part of Standard going forward. Next, at number 2, I've got Bristlebane Battler for 1 and a green mana. You get a Kithkin Soldier. That's a 6/6 with Trample and Ward 2. And this creature enters with 5 -1/-1 counters on it. So you're in essence blighting at 5. And whenever another creature you control enters while this creature has a -1/-1 counter on it, remove a -1/-1 counter from this creature. So Bristlebane Battler, again, it's not legendary. So you can have 4 of these in your deck. And you're going to be playing it in a creature deck. Now, it could be a soldier deck. It could be a Kithkin deck. Doesn't matter what kind of deck it's going to be in. You're going to be playing creatures. And even the current Badger Mole Cub decks, I could see them playing a couple copies of this because in a couple of turns, it's most likely going to be a 6/6 because you're playing out your hand very quickly in that deck because you can generate a large amount of mana, and spending 2 of that mana to play Bristlebane Battler I don't think is a bad move. And because it has Trample and Ward 2, it's going to be able to protect itself. It's going to be able to get damage through your opponent's blockers, and because of that, I've got it at number 2. And at number 1, I've got Abigail, Eloquent First Year for 2 hybrid Orzhov mana, and it's a legendary bird bard, and it's a 1/1 with flying, first strike, and lifelink. And when Abigail enters the battlefield, up to 1 other target creature loses all abilities, put a flying counter, a first strike counter, and a lifelink counter on that creature. This is bonkers to me. A card that I saw played in the early access that I kind of forgotten a little bit about was the Ancient one. It's an 8/8 for 2 mana, but it can't attack or block unless you have cards in your graveyard. And usually what happens with that is it never quite gets there. But you play that on turn 2, you play Abigail on turn 3. Abigail removes the abilities on the card, so now it's first strike, lifelink, and it has flying, and it does 8 damage a turn, and you don't have to worry about the graveyard anymore. And that's just one example of this. I guarantee you there are going to be other cards in Standard that are going to be activatable in that way by Abigail. And because of that, I really have this feeling that Abigail is going to be a key card as we move through the next several years of Standard. All right, so that's my list of the top 10 cards from Lorwyn that I think over the next few years are going to be very impactful for Standard. Tell me what you think in the comments. And remember to like and subscribe to get further content like this throughout Lorwyn Eclipsed and beyond. Thanks for staying to the end of the video, and I put a link to all my videos for previews of Lorwyn Eclipsed here, and also my look at the top uncommons from the set. So thanks, I'll see you in the next one.